Hello, welcome to Virgo season of Expansive Astrology Academy. I'm so glad that you're joining me. I'm Melissa O'Malley. I am in disbelief that we're already in Virgo season. We're already in the second Earth sign of the astrological year. I'm very excited for what Virgo season is going to bring to us, the invitations that Virgo brings, the ways that Virgo helps us to refine our lives. I think the word refine or refining is going to be very potent this season. We're really looking at refining our lives, refining our routines, and refining our relationships with our brains. Yes, well, let's just hop right into it. This week, I'm going to tell you all about what Virgo brings, what Virgo is, some of the archetypes, some of the themes to look out for the season, and how to embrace them in a really empowered way. And we're hang out till the end because we're starting with homework already this week. I really want you to experiment with something all right from the get-go. We're hopping right in. So welcome. Thanks so much for being here. As always, make sure to reach out to the group or reach out to me privately if there's anything that you want to reach out with, anything that's feeling really potent to you or really relevant for you, anything that you want to get my thoughts on or the group's thoughts on, or that you want to share, celebrate, get feedback about, anything at all. Make sure to do so. Make sure to reach out. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. That being said, let's get started. Virgo is an earth sign. It is a mutable sign ruled by the planet Mercury. The phrase for Virgo is, I analyze. The symbol for Virgo is the Virgin, which we'll talk about all of this and what it means. The tarot card that rules Virgo is the Hermit. And because Mercury rules Virgo and the Magician rules Mercury, we also get a special guest appearance from the Magician again, just like with Gemini season. And then finally, Virgo lives in the sixth house of service, or our life's work, the house of health and purpose. So let's break that down even further and talk about what all of that means. Like, okay, what does all that mean? What does that actually bring? First of all, starting with the element of earth. Virgo is one of three earth signs, right? We have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Earth is grounding. It's practical. It's hardworking. The earth element represents matter itself. All things earthly. Earth, the element, encompasses our physical body, our material possessions, our finances, our routine, our work, like all things, literally all things earthly, all things having to do with this life. Some people really reduce it to mean just money or how we make our money, and that's a very capitalist view of the element of earth. It's so much more than that. Earth signs are interested in creating comfort. So, and they're excellent. Earth energy is excellent at creating comfort, security, stability. And something to keep in mind is that just like with our planet Earth, overconsumption of resources can be devastating. Yeah, we have to tend to these things. We have to tend to our resources and utilize our resources wisely in our pursuit of comfort. So one of the stereotypes, I think mostly with Taurus, but one of the stereotypes is that, yeah, I think it's mostly with Taurus, that Earth is, Taurus really loves food, is the stereotype. And that's a very Earth energy stereotype. And it's a great example. Food can really bring us comfort. It can be a form of community, and food is here simply to sustain us and keep us alive. So overconsumption of food can be very disempowering, can be unhealthy, can be dangerous in ways, right? So we get to be very intentional and careful with the way that we create comfort and the way that we utilize our resources that have been given to us. So Virgo being a mutable sign means that it's very flexible and resilient. Mutable signs are adaptive and willing to embrace change. Virgo is movable energy that is focused on care and service and healing. And with the mutable signs, if that energy has nowhere to go, we tend to feel really scattered or anxious. So Virgo being that divine combination of earth and mutable means that it is both grounded and flexible and willing to change. Being ruled by Mercury means that it's ruled by the planet of communication, the planet of how we think. Mercury asks, what am I here to offer or communicate or do? This is all about how we think and how we express our thought processes. And that goes for body language too. It's all Mercury, how we show up, how we express our thought processes, how we make things happen for ourselves. Represented by the Virgin, Joanna Woolfolk says that the symbol of the Virgin is representative of purity of motive, modesty, industriousness, and service of oneself and one's talents toward helping others. The Virgin is usually pictured holding a sheaf of wheat that symbolizes the utilization of ideas and skills to benefit or nourish the world. The Virgin is often shown like holding this harvested wheat, which is symbolic of Virgo being able to take what is sown and harvest that into something practical and beneficial. The ability to take the resources given to us, taking what we know and the skills and materials at hand to create something more. And living in the sixth house of service, or our life's work or our health, we get to explore, how do we handle shortcomings? In this house, we're learning how to heal ourselves so that we may realize our potential and be of service to the world in the most sacred of ways, developing a very responsible and conscientious relationship with work and health. So, empowered Virgo is precise. It can be perfectionist and hardworking, detail-oriented, conscientious. It's very careful energy. It's an energy that has a lot of integrity. It's responsible, systematic, analytical. It's really interested in self-improvement. It's dedicated and responsible and intentional. I think again of the word careful. It takes great care in what it does and how it shows up. It's devoted and humble. Virgo is an excellent caretaker. So for this season, over the next week, explore some of those empowered energies and how they show up for you. How do you embrace things like caretaking? And how intentional are you with your life? Where do you fall on like a scale of, hardworking and detail-oriented? Where do you fall in terms of those things? And be careful, because though those traits are very empowered and very helpful, Virgo can also show up in a really disempowered way, where there's that careful, perfectionist, caretaking, detail-oriented side, and then there's like perfectionist shit that is very not empowered. right? I'm sure most of us can at least relate on some level to experiencing unhelpful perfectionism, where we just become crippled or anxious, or we procrastinate out of our need to do something perfectly. So empowered, there's like being detail oriented and intentional and careful with our work. Disempowered, there's perfectionism. Yeah. Disempowered Virgo is also really anxious. It's very, very critical, or like obsessive, like too detail oriented. It's unable to like zoom out and look at the bigger picture. It's very worried. Disempowered Virgo energy is when we overthink things. We get really stuck in overthinking. It's impatient. It's painstaking. And sometimes doing painstaking work is necessary. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's empowered. And I think sometimes we engage in painstaking work out of maybe like a martyr type energy or place, or where we really dive into painstaking work feeling like that's the only way, that's the most valuable way. We get to rethink that. Where are you maybe investing too much blood, sweat, and tears? Can you maybe lighten up a little bit? Virgo in a disempowered place is high-strung, neurotic, anxious, cold, or unemotional. It can be very picky and argumentative, control freak. So this month we're really exploring managing our inner control freak, managing our inner perfectionist, tending to our lives with great care, tediousness almost, but not in a way that is crippling and disempowered and critical. The challenge of Virgo, the challenge that Virgo energy faces, and perhaps the challenge for you this month might be in balancing rationality and planning with faith and spontaneity. How can we balance those things? How can you balance being very rational and planning things out and taking great care with also having faith in what you have to bring to the table, having faith in inspired, messy action, having faith in spontaneity? How can you balance logic and emotion? The challenge of Virgo is to use we're learning how to use our brilliant and analytical and critical minds without being totally crippled by it, without being crippled by neuroses and perfectionism and fear and imposter syndrome. Balance. We're working with a whole, like the challenge is balancing those things. How can we honor our cognitive brains? How can we honor our rational, logical brains and also live a soul-driven experience, live a full experience that, again, isn't crippled by anxiety and overthinking and fear of failure, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of room for balance here. So as we start to get our feet wet this season, this month, just objectively keep an eye out, keep a lookout, notice how you operate in these ways. Are you meticulous with yourself in a way that is helpful and positive? Or are you meticulous with yourself in a way that is very critical and demeaning or rude to yourself? Are you an asshole to yourself? Or are you not meticulous with yourself at all and really experience a lot of chaos and a lack of routine, a lack of feeling very empowered and in charge over your life? Virgo is in charge. It's careful. It takes charge. So if you are a person who feels like your life is kind of out of your control and you are not in charge, we have really big invitations for you this month too. Part of Virgo's mission, its whole deal in a way, is to live and learn. And that's interesting because when we say like live and learn, usually we mean like, oh, you live and you learn, like learn from your mistakes, be accepting of your mistakes. It's all right. You live and you learn, right? It's ironic that that phrase live and learn is so potent during Virgo season, because Virgo can sometimes be very hesitant to embrace something like that. Virgo might have a lot of difficulty having faith in that. Might have a lot of difficulty trusting that you live and you learn, trusting the process of making mistakes and being imperfect. And that is part of Virgo's whole mission, is to live and learn. Virgo is here to live life fully and to analyze and really understand those experiences and to use it to help in some way. A wonderful way to do that, a wonderful way to live and learn, is to learn how to embrace messy action and learn how to embrace learning as we go along. Unfortunately, though, we often cripple ourselves with perfectionism or analysis or criticism. We do all sorts of things to run from that, to run from the present moment, to run from our potential, to keep us kind of held back and sitting in the same square footage we've already learned. Virgo is a brilliant mind, and because Virgo is so analytical, it can have a hard time stepping out of that brain space and into soul space. Part of the mission of Mercury and the Magician lies in bringing the magic from outside of us, within us, and then back out again. That's the whole deal with the Magician, is bringing the magic, from without to within and then back out again. So it's really important for Virgo to learn how to balance that, how to use that brilliant analytical mind to make magic in the here and now, rather than using that brilliant analytical mind to stay stuck up in the mind and stuck up in this same square footage that we're already in. We all know how overthinking can really keep us stuck. How often have you experienced this, where the solutions that we seek are often seeking us? They're often staring us in the face. If only we would like pause and back up and get out of our own fucking head and look and think for a moment. It's often that once we're able to kind of remove ourselves from a situation, the solution's staring us in the face. Right, so we get to practice zooming out and zooming in as necessary. So what does that mean? What do I mean by that? Zooming out means like zooming out, getting the whole picture. It's like getting the helicopter view from above. It's the news team in the helicopter who's able to see the whole high-speed chase going on. Meanwhile, if we're zooming in, we are the news anchor who's on the ground, who's doing a targeted interview with one person, or that makes sense, right? When we're zooming in, we're more detail oriented. We're able to tease apart the details, look at a certain aspect of something. And then when we're zooming out, we're able to really view the whole picture. And I think some of us, and I think Virgo energy, can have a hard time knowing the difference or seeing the value or knowing when to do one versus the other. When is it best to zoom in and focus on this one thing that's right in front of me? And when is it best to zoom out and look at the big picture and like take it all in for what it is? We're learning how to do both. we're learning how to develop a very solid sense of purpose, how to make sure that we're learning how to make sure that we're following our life's purpose on like that grand scale, that very zoomed out scale. And we're doing that by zooming into our day-to-day and refining what happens and what we bring for ourselves in the day-to-day. Quoting Joanna Woolfolk again, she says, quote, Virgo's important life lesson is to expand your vision, to look at things in larger terms, and believe in the power of faith, unquote. So this reminds us that you don't need to know everything. We're going to learn what it means to be in a state of sacred analysis. Rather than overthinking or criticizing or being very critical, being in a state of sacred analysis where we're identifying when overthinking truly isn't helping. We're learning how to embrace and it is what it is attitude. I know some people really cringe at that phrase, it is what it is. Our inner control freak is like, but it doesn't have to be, right? We're learning how to use our brains and balancing that with a solid foundation of faith. Now, one thing that Virgo reminds us of is this fact, this phrase that I don't know where it first came from. This phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. We'll talk about this more in week 3, I believe. But consider how does that land for you? Start to really be with that fact. Is that a fact? Do you think that's a fact? How you do one thing is how you do everything. How does that land for you? And if it were to be true, how does that mean you're showing up? Just observe. Just get a feel for it. Just kind of try it on, give it a taste, see how it lands, and start to experiment and observe that. See how you're showing up. If that is true, how I do one thing is how I do everything. What does that mean in terms of how you're showing up, how you're caretaking different aspects of your life and yourself? We're going to really practice paying attention to the detail. Whatever, and that could mean a million different things, right? That could mean paying more attention to the detail of the kinks in your neck and honoring when your body is sore. Could be paying attention better to how you balance your checkbook, how you tend to your relationships, how you tend to your body, how do you tend to your time. We're really going to break that down later this season. And again, for this first week, just begin to explore, begin to practice paying more attention to the detail of all different aspects of your life. Virgo also reminds us that a job worth doing is a job worth doing well. So Virgo can be very, very meticulous, very detail-oriented, very painstaking, and in an empowered way, Virgo reminds us to complete tasks to their fullest, to go all in, to really be with what you are doing in the present moment. So week 2, when we talk about the Hermit, we're going to talk a lot about mindfulness and being in the present moment and finding refuge in the present moment, no matter what the present moment looks like. And until then, consider that invitation to really pay attention to the details, to really be with what we are doing, and to really complete things to their fullest potential when we can. Don't shortchange yourself. Don't half-ass yourself. Now, that has to include allowing a job to be finished. And I know that Virgo can have a hard time with that sometimes. Calling a project complete, that's a very perfectionism thing, right? Where we put off finishing something, or we put off calling something done because it doesn't feel perfect yet. So We have a lot of room to grow and a lot of room to learn that here. Being fully present with what we're doing, realizing that a job worth doing is a job worth doing well. If I have to do this thing, I might as well really dive in and really be in it and really put my all into the experience of it, whatever it is. It could be anything. It could be rearranging your pantry. It could be brushing your teeth, or it could be working toward fulfilling your life's dreams, your life's purpose. No matter what the task is, we're practicing completing it, being with the task all the way in the most full, devoted, dedicating, intentional of ways. This is a chance to really treat ourselves and our lives and our day-to-day routines with the utmost care. Take that invitation. Take that invitation. In Leo season, part of the invitation of Leo season is to treat yourself like royalty. Treat yourself like you're so important and respectable that you deserve to shine and wear a little crown on your head, right? That's very Leo energy. That doesn't go away in Virgo season. In fact, let me back up. That can disappear real quick in Virgo season if we're not careful about it, right? If we sink into some really disempowered Virgo energy of like, ooh, I need to do things really perfectly and I need to be very, very careful, we can really cripple ourselves. Or we can use Virgo energy to empower ourselves, to treat ourselves even better, in an even more refined way, treat ourselves like royalty, in a very careful way, caring for ourselves. Care is a big Virgo word, I think. How do you care for yourself? How do you care for your relationships? How do you care for your work? How do you care for your body? How do you care for your finances? How do you care for your pets? How do you care for your spiritual health? Start to think about that. Now, one more warning, if you will, when it comes to Virgo is that Virgo can have a really hard time accepting criticism. Virgo can be so analytical and critical that sometimes it has a hard time hearing criticism that maybe it didn't think of before, or because Virgo can be so perfectionist, it can have a hard time hearing any sort of critique or criticism. We get to develop a very empowered relationship with criticism, both criticism that comes from within us and accepting criticism from outside of us. Just something to keep in mind. Another thing is that Virgo can have a really hard time with acceptance and being with what is and accepting something as it is. Again, that perfectionism. So this season, we're going to talk about something called radical acceptance, and how to really embrace acceptance, how to know when a project is complete, how to call something done, how to accept something for what it is, even if it could be better, even if you see ways that it could be better, how can you accept things for what they are? We also have a really great opportunity with Virgo to differentiate between criticism and like curiosity. We get to really facilitate within our little brains, our brilliant brains. We get to make a shift from being really critical and practice embracing a little more curiosity instead. Because really those two things, criticism and curiosity, lead us to the same place. They result in the same outcome of like just exploring things further, exploring the potential of things, exploring if we're meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, and we can do so in a really critical asshole way, or we can get really curious with ourselves and just curiously, kindly, carefully explore, I wonder how this could be better. I wonder how this could be more refined. I wonder how I could do this in a more meticulous or detail-oriented way rather than you're failing at this, that's terrible, you're never going to be done, you're never going to meet those expectations or those standards, right? You can hear the difference between critique and curiosity. That's something that we get to refine within our own internal narratives. Yeah. So with the work of expansive astrology this season, we're gonna, in week 3, we're gonna talk about routine. I believe the module is called reflection and review. And we're gonna really work on finding new ways to work with what is present in our lives, to work with what we've already got in front of us. Again, Virgo is about service and like soul purpose and finding our life's work, our life's purpose. No big deal, right? It's huge. It's fucking huge. But we're finding that overarching soul's purpose within the day-to-day. As you exist already, as your life is right now, whether you feel like you're really working towards your soul's purpose and you have a clear idea of what that is and you're on the path, or whether you feel totally not on the path and you're not even sure like what the heck you're doing right here, right now. Either way, we're zooming into the day-to-day to squeeze as much juice out of the day-to-day as we can, to make sure we're getting on track with our soul's purpose, to make sure we are on track with what we're meant to be doing here and the gifts that we have to give here. We're also going to refine the standards that we have set for ourselves. So this is something that you can kind of just begin to explore as we start to dive in and get acquainted with Virgo season. How do you think, when it comes to like the standards that you've set for yourself, how are you doing? What do you think? Are your standards pretty fucking low? Could you stand to raise them? Or are your standards really perfectionist and critical and really, really impossible to meet? What do you think the standards are that you have for your life? Like, where do you think they fall? And do you think you're doing yourself favors by setting your standards wherever they are set? And I'm keeping that pretty vague for a reason. You know, consider all facets, all aspects of your life in terms of standards, whether it's how your parents treat you, to how your boss treats you, to how your partner treats you, to how you treat yourself. The standards that you set for yourself in terms of the food that you eat and the clothes that you wear, and the work that you produce, maybe. Where do your standards lie? Are they fair? Are they attainable? Just something to start thinking about. Because we want to, and we're going to be working on, especially in week 3, ways to set yourself up for success to meeting those standards. And then in week 4, speaking of the standards we have set for ourselves, in week 4, we're going to be battling, I think that's an appropriate word, we're going to be really battling perfectionism, imposter syndrome, fear of failure, fear of success, whatever you want to call it. I think those things are very closely related. We're going to, so again, with like setting standards for yourself, are you too much of a perfectionist? Are your standards fair? Do you allow yourself to embrace inspiration? Do you embrace messy action? Or do you have to have everything lined up and perfect? And do you have to know? Do you have to feel like you know that you can execute a thing before you do a thing? One of the examples for me, and how I show up as a perfectionist is, okay, when I was younger, I used to really look up to the jocks in school, the sporty girls who wore the ponytails and the headbands and the basketball shorts and could play any game and like didn't really care. The jock girls, I really admired that. Mary Kate instead of Ashley Olsen. You know what I'm saying, yeah? I really admired the jock girls, and maybe that's because I am so, that's like quite opposite of what I am. And part of the reason that's opposite of what I am is because I never give myself a damn chance to be good at sports. Because I was the type of person who, if I swung and missed the first time, I felt like a failure. I felt humiliated. I let that dictate that I must not be good at this, and I'm done. Done. No room to improve, no room to learn. I'll try it maybe once or twice, and if I'm not a master of golf by the third hole, I've never been golfing. But if I don't master it, I get embarrassed and quit. Right? That's a very perfectionist thing, and that's the opposite of like embracing messy action and embracing not being perfect at something the first try, embracing being a work in progress. So I wonder if you relate to that. I wonder how perfectionism shows up in your life. And we're really going to dive into that in week 4 this season. Because that's absurd. If I'm not a prodigy at everything I ever tried, I just don't ever try again. I wonder exactly how many ways that has held me back. And I wonder how many ways that type of thinking might hold you back. Yeah. Another beautiful invitation from Virgo for us to really explore. Now, finally, with Virgo season, and I think Virgo would really appreciate this, I felt like it really fit to bring in some DBT, some dialectical behavioral therapy into the curriculum this month. So dialectical behavioral therapy is a modality. It's a manualized treatment, which is why I think Virgo would really appreciate it. You know, manualized treatment. It's very serious. It's very calculated. It's evidence-based. I think Virgo would really appreciate that, yeah? And it's totally relevant. When we're talking about balancing our logical selves with our emotional selves, when we're talking about not being crippled by overthinking, when we're talking about having a hard time accepting something as imperfect, we're in a lot of ways, we're talking about dialectical behavioral therapy. And so I'm going to be bringing like 4 or 5 different DBT skills to you in week 4 of Virgo season that you can start to, like, the beautiful thing about DBT is that it's skills based. It's skills that you can apply in your real world, in your life already as you are. It's a skill. They're skills. So I'm going to bring you, we're going to talk about mindfulness, which is the foundation of DBT. And I'm going to introduce you to a concept called wise mind that comes from DBT. We're going to talk about something called radical acceptance. We're going to talk about something called non-judgmental stance. And again, that logic versus emotion, or being versus doing. Is another concept that comes up in DBT. I'm really excited to bring those things to you. So ask yourself, check out the PDF for this week. We get to ask ourselves, how do you nourish the world? What is the gift that you bring to this earth in this human lifetime? How do you nourish the world? You get to explore, what do you have a hard time accepting? That might be kind of scary to look at. What do you have a hard time accepting? Begin to explore the standards that you have set for yourself. Your willingness to complete projects. How much do you procrastinate? Things like that. How much do you impose unnecessary demands on yourself to be or appear perfect? It's unnecessary. Now, the homework for this week, I want to give you something to start applying right off the bat today, if you will. This comes from a coach named Amy Young. She's brilliant. I highly recommend her work. A lot of her work is geared toward like single women. So if that's your demographic, You might really enjoy her. Even if that's not your demographic, I think she's brilliant and has a lot to offer. So much so that I want to take something that she teaches and bring it to you here now. I'm pretty sure she coined this term, the sacred six. So you are going to develop for yourself your own sacred six. Now, these are the six things, the six activities, the six habits, the six hobbies, six things that you consider sacred and that you complete for yourself on a daily basis. Just things that you make sure that you prioritize no matter what on a daily basis, your sacred six. So an example of a sacred six might be being with your breath, even if just for a moment. It could mean meditating 30 minutes a day, twice a day, every day, whatever that means for you. So it could be being with your breath, complimenting yourself or having like a gratitude practice, moving your body, taking your vitamins, drinking enough water, and eating a piece of fruit. It could, you could have journaling in there. You could have getting 8 hours of sleep in there. You could have a million things in there. If it's applying lotion to your hands mindfully and just incorporating, making that a sacred practice for yourself that you return to every single day for a purpose, for a reason, that counts as like a sacred six type activity. Pulling a tarot card every day might be a sacred six activity. Giving your partner a hug or telling them you appreciate them every day might be a sacred six activity. Just six things that are attainable. Like this needs to be something that you can commit to every day. Six things that you consider so sacred that they are a part of your routine. This is super relevant for Virgo because Virgo is such a meticulous caretaker. I want you to get your feet wet, kind of start experimenting with what it means for you to have a pretty solid routine of even just six super basic things that you are meticulous about and that you absolutely commit to, no ifs, ands, or buts, every single day. And you can be imperfect. You can have days off. Like, this can be imperfect. And I want you to really commit to it, at least for this next season, these next 4 weeks of your life. Experiment with what it means to have a bank of six things that you commit to doing every single day, and let them be nourishing, let them be helpful, let them be intentional, let them be fun. You know, maybe taking your vitamins isn't normally a fun thing, but if you incorporate it into this idea of like a sacred ritual that you engage in every single day for the simple reason of taking care of yourself, maybe it'll be a little more fun to take your vitamins, right? If you think of it that way. So I have to comment on Amy Young's brilliance one more time before I wrap up. I admittedly, I was trying to think of a way that I can kind of like tweak that or make it my own. And I think it's brilliant as it is. 6 things is totally doable. Calling it sacred makes it so important, right? So Amy Young is brilliant. All credit goes to Amy Young. Thank you, Amy Young, for this. I really believe in the power of doing something like that, and I think Virgo agrees. I know that Virgo agrees. So check out the PDF. I have a little sample Sacred Six in there for you. and a whole bunch more. We've got some suggested tarot pulls, some suggested like reflection or writing prompts in there. Take a peek. Got your weekly mission in there. Take a peek at the PDF and let me know. Let me know what your secret 6 are going to be. What are the 6 things that you're going to commit to doing for yourself every single day? Let me know how Virgo energy shows up for you and what you're excited for this season. That's it. That's it. That's week 1 of Virgo. I'm so glad that you're here. I really hope that this serves. I really hope that this inspires and that you're ready to experiment with treating yourself with the utmost care, even more care than you have been previously. We get to caretake ourselves even extra this month. How great is that? How great is that? So I will see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Take extra care of yourselves. All right. Bye-bye.